Hello again, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Welcome back to another installment of Doc G's Wine and Spirits Review. Today, welcome again to my backyard paradise, as I call it, my outdoor lounge. And I want to share with you today what started out was I was going to do a spot on a cocktail. As you can see here, we're going to be talking cocktails today. I was going to start out or do this clip on just a drink called the Negroni, a cocktail called the Negroni. And as I researched that, I found out that the main ingredient in the Negroni, which is called Campari, which is what we're going to talk about today, is a very versatile cocktail mixer. So we're going to call this the Campari presentation. Cheers and welcome. I'll talk about this drink in a minute. It's a definite summer cocktail, as it is a little close out here today. So I'd like to talk about the Campari. I'm going to talk about 3 different drinks that will be made from the ensemble cast that you see here on the table. And we'll end with a little twist on the Negroni, a drink that was introduced to me by one of my good friends, without whom I probably wouldn't even really be interested in Negronis. So let's start out by talking about Campari. It's this beautiful, well, that's the bottle I was using. Let's give you the full idea here. You've probably seen it if you shop for spirits in the stores. Bright red. It was created by a gentleman named Gaspare Campari in Italy in 1860. Now, what's in it? Well, it's a secret recipe, and the only known ingredients are water and alcohol. However, there's speculation as to upwards of 20 to 30 other types of ingredients that may be in Campari. It's basically an infusion of bitter herbs, aromatic plants, fruit, alcohol, and water. So the recipe of this has remained unchanged since 1860. Its ABV is 24%, so when you're using this as a mixer, and it's generally in mixers that are mostly alcohol, but not totally, but it will add some kick alcoholically to your drink. It goes for about $32 a bottle. You can find it in 375 milliliter bottles for about half that price. So what I'd like to do is feature 3 different cocktails that Campari can be used for. And trust me, it can be used for more than 3, but I'm going to focus on 3 of the classic Campari-based cocktails. And the first one is the one that you see here in my glass. It's called the Americano. And it is 1 ounce of the Campari, 1 ounce of the red sweet vermouth. If you remember when we did martinis, we talked about using dry vermouth. This is either red or sweet vermouth that you can use, and that goes about 15% alcohol. So there you go, 24% with the Campari and 15. Just a little summer spritzer like this one can pack a little bit of a wallop. And then you finish it off with whatever kind of club soda you want to use, and trust me, on the day like today, it's very hot and humid. Garnish it off with an orange peel, orange rind, a little orange twist, and have yourself a sip. Now, taste-wise, it's a little bit refreshing, but if you don't like bitter, you might not like drinks made with Campari. So this one is bitter, but yet refreshing. The sweet vermouth gives it a little bit of sweetness. Very, very refreshing. Very, very light in terms of cocktails. So the second drink that I want to feature for you is what is called the Negroni. And the Negroni is nothing more than this one, the Americano, that substitutes out the club soda for with gin. And you can use any kind of gin that you want. You can just experiment and figure out which gin it is that you like best for it and have at it. I recommend basically a gin that is not too floral or aromatic, one that's a basic London dry style type of gin. Make a fantastic drink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit here. We'll set this one aside. I'm going to grab a glass. It's best to keep your glass chilled. Take your shaker. We're going to start with the gin. The gin that I chose here today is called Death's Door. It's a coriander fennel forward gin that mixes very well with an assortment of drinks. Only 1 ounce. but trust me, this Negroni is total alcohol. And then the next ingredient, you add your Campari, 1 ounce. Everything's 1 to 1 to 1. Pour that in. And finally, you finish it off with your sweet vermouth or your red vermouth. Pour it in. Shake it up a little bit. You can stir it or shake it, no big deal here as opposed to the martini. And strain it, because I like to drink them neat. Neat means there's no ice cubes, because the more ice cube you have, and it's best to chill your glass. This was chilled in advance to come outside. I had to let it warm up just a little bit. Take your little twist of orange, throw it in, and cheers. What you have here is called your classic Negroni. It's one of the 4 or 5 top recognized classic cocktails by the International Bar Association, if you want to look that up. Ooh, now that has a little bit of a kick. It does have that bitterness from the Campari, and it is meant to be sipped. This is another one, and the reason that you don't want to have the ice in it, by the time you would sip it slowly, the ice would melt it and dilute it, and you would lose the flavor impact of the Negroni. But again, this is a very classic. Again, 1919, Count Negroni in Italy said, out with the club soda, throw some gin in this for me. So that's what he did. So let's go to the next drink, and we're going to change up a little bit here. I don't know about you guys, but I am a little bit of a bourbon sipper. Not too much, but bourbon can be used along with the Campari as well. And the drink that you make with the Campari and bourbon is called a boulevardier. And that's kind of a loose French term for a man about town. Now this one, let me reach over here to my trusty container, is meant to be had in a cocktail glass. Now, the ingredients that go in the boulevardier are the same. You just substitute the gin with the bourbon. And my measuring cup, 1 ounce of Campari, 1 ounce of bourbon. Let's get this gin out of here. He's done for the day. Actually, they call for 1.5 ounces of bourbon in this one. A little bit different ratio. So that's going to pack even more of a wallop. And the bourbon that I happen to use here is 100 proof. So this is going to be a very powerful drink. I'm going to be passing these drinks around to my friends just in case you think I'm going to walk out of here and fall on my face. And finally, you finish it off, top it off with your 1 ounce of red vermouth. Give it a little stir over the ice to chill it. This glass would normally be chilled. It still is kind of cold. Strain it through. And this one, look at the pretty color in the glass. This one, instead of garnishing it off with an orange, you garnish it off with a lemon. True confession, I've never made one of these, but I figured as I did the research for this spot, I had to try one. So here we go. Oh, you can really smell the bourbon coming out of it. I think I found myself a new cocktail. One of the things I did find in my research, as a side note, was that they recommended the Negroni really any time, but this one they said has a warmth to it that the Negroni doesn't have. The Negroni is a little bit more astringent. This one is warm, and they recommend this boulevardier more for the cool weather into the winter. So again, let me try that again, since this is a new one to me. If you like bourbon, you're going to like this. Very good. So let me set that aside. We're getting a little heavy on the alcohol here. I'd like to conclude this cocktail hour here with you with one of my favorites that was introduced to me by my friend Jorge. And it is a twist on the Negroni, but it is done, instead of with a clear gin, it is done with a barrel-aged gin. And I know, I'm not sure you can see the label here, But this is Blue Coat, Philadelphia Distilling's, one of my favorite gins, and it's my favorite barrel-aged gin. Just talk about the gin a little bit before we make the drink. These are aged. They're actually gins that are let to sit in a barrel for a while, and it gives them this golden color. They're still gin. They still taste like gin. Some people say they've got a little bit of a whiskey flavor to them. I don't agree. They taste like gin that has a little bit of oak overtone, which I love. I think it's fantastic. So, the recipe is the same. It's just going to look a little bit different in the glass. Pull out my chilled glass here. Add a little extra ice. Pardon the hands, it's just me. And away with our ingredients. True confession today, I'm not going to do it. I double my gin because I only usually have one of these. But for today's purposes, I'm going to do 1 ounce of Campari. One ounce of red vermouth. And 1 ounce of the best barrel-aged gin I've ever had. And there are others on the market. If you look around, you'll find them. I do have others in my bar. So you add your Blue Coat barrel-aged, just called the barrel-aged Negroni. You can use tequila. You can use a lot of other cocktails or a lot of other spirits to mix with the, swish it around a little bit. And again, I like mine neat. You pour it in there, you notice it's a little bit different tint. Might not be able to pick that up. We'll set that aside. I like to use blood oranges. They have a little bit more of orange depth in them. And here we go. That adds like a little bit of spice compared to the other Negroni. And you only need a glass about this big. I do recommend, this is just my personal taste, but I recommend for you, chill your glass. If you know you're going to have this, you can even chill your spirits ahead of time so it all stays colder longer. Where we talked about with wine, you don't want any frost on the glass. Here you want to actually pull a frosted glass right out of the freezer. And then by the time you pour your ingredients and you mix your ingredients in ice, this will be a very cold drink for most of the time that you're going to drink it. It'll warm up just a little bit, and that's not a bad thing. So remember, if you're interested in exploring a lot of new cocktails, I recommend you go out. You can find this no matter where you buy liquor, whatever state you live in. You find yourself some Campari. They actually have the Campari Negroni recipe on the back of the bottle. It's a fantastic mixer to have in your collection of liqueurs and mixers so that you can impress your friends when you're playing bartender with them, like I did with you today. So until the next time, cheers, santé, and we'll see you again.